welcome to Besant Lodge, and thank you very much for coming to this, our second session of our Tarot series. And those of you who were here last time, thank you. Those of you who were here last time will recall that I regaled you I think for an excessive length of time about the Tarot for about 2 hours, which is a sort of a Manly Hall chronology, because Mr. Hall used to speak for at least 2 hours when he spoke. But in any event, I perhaps overdid it a little, and I overloaded you and whoever else were here at that time. So at this time, I will just mention a few items that I may not have dealt with at that time, and then we will proceed to other matters. And we have a good star-studded month for you, so that we'll have I won't mention them in advance, but we have at least two people coming in the future Fridays whom I'm looking forward to very, very much. And so I think it will be an interesting series, especially to those who maybe have some acquaintance with the Tarot already. However, I probably need to add a few more items to my exceedingly long list of topics of last week, and among them being that one has to become familiar with the cards. Now, what does that mean? You can't shake hands with a tarot card, but you have to know the cards in various ways. You have to know them in a sense of being familiar with that particular card and its symbology. And secondly, also, if you are going to divine, if you are going to read the cards for somebody, then you have to be familiar with their divinatory meaning. I have known would-be tarot readers whom I felt like throttling, which is not really one of my usual activities with people, because they presumed to read the cards without knowing the meaning of the cards. Now, there are established and reliable dictionary meanings, we might say, of all the 78 cards of the Tarot. And that being the case, an efficient Tarot reader has to be familiar with those meanings. And that's the basic, so that when you turn up a particular card out of the deck, you know what essentially, basically, the divinatory meaning of that card is. So that's the first thing. How are you going to learn that? I mean, there's a lot of cards there. You know that. And at least I remember the way I learned it was that I got hold of 1 or 2 little books, and I'm sure that they are still available. In fact, I own them all, but I can't find them in my disorderly library. But in due course of time, I will. And they are all by the same author. The author was a lady by the name of Eden, like the Garden of Eden, Gray. Eden Gray. And the books are excellent in the sense that there you can learn the meaning of the tarot cards. She has 3 different books, and they're all pretty much the same material shuffled around in various ways. But let's say what I did, I employed the methods whereby one can learn a foreign language. You have a dictionary, and then you have the English meaning on one side, and I don't know the Hottentot meaning on the other side, and then you learn, this is this, and this is this. Then you cover up the English side and see whether you remember what let's say the dictionary meaning of this card has been. Now this may sound to you a little bit as a redundant or boring activity, but it's a basic activity that is necessary for dealing with the tarot. If we don't have a fairly good knowledge of the dictionary meaning of the cards, of the entire deck, major arcana, minor arcana, then our career as a tarot reader will thereby be greatly hampered. And it's not really that difficult. So it's just like when you have a dictionary in front of you, you cover up the English translation, and you have the Latin or the Greek or anything else, and then remember, all right, now what does this mean? And then pretty soon you will, it will come natural to you, because human memory is quite a useful device, and that sort of dictionary treatment for the cards will bestow on you a basic structure of divinatory meaning. And then, of course, additional meaning for the reading will be derived from the position of the cards in the spread that you are using, and there are quite a few different spreads. I have only used one in my long career, and that was always the Celtic spread. Now, once again, I don't mean that the Celtic, the spread or the one with the Celtic cross is necessarily superior to anything else, but it is a good basic spread. And here again, what you need to do is familiarize yourself with the spread also, so that by the time you are then really engaged in reading the cards for somebody, you will have a basic knowledge of the divinatory meaning of the individual cards, and you will have a basic knowledge of the meaning of their position in the spread that you are using. Some people who are very Kabbalistically inclined, which is a great and wonderful field of study, will lay out the cards according to the pattern of the tree of life of the Kabbalah, starting with Keter up above and then coming down. And that's certainly a time-honored and sacred device, and it can also be used to read the cards. So it's really a matter of preference. But the important thing is not so much which spread you are using, or for that matter even which deck of tarot, although I strongly recommend the Waite Albano deck because of its fine design that goes back to Arthur Edward Waite, one of the famous tarot scholars, and his disciple, the artist Pamela Coleman Smith. So it's a reliable source, and it's a nice, clean deck. By clean, I mean that if you are intuitive enough, and if you are intense in your desire, then you will fairly easily handle this deck and continue to remember its meaning, and thereby to become a good diviner. Now, of course, not everybody goes about things in a very helpful way, and I have seen some pretty funny things along that line, and I won't mention where because that might cast aspersion on the establishment where this was happening, although I don't think it's there anymore. It was an occult bookstore, very nice people. And so there was a lady there who regularly showed up on a particular evening, which by unfortunate coincidence was the same evening usually when I dropped in. And so I always had the singular disturbing pleasure to watch her lay out the cards in a completely heterodox way, and apparently with very little knowledge of the meaning of the cards. So I did not protest, because who was I to protest? But sometime in that time period, this would all have been sort of the late 60s, early 70s. The gentleman with whom I have become quite friendly, and I will always value his friendship, he's no longer among us. The late Dr. Israel Regardi asked me one time, say, have you ever told that woman to lay out the cards differently? She doesn't know anything about it or well. I said, she'll find out that her results won't be that good, and then maybe she will learn something. So we left her alone. In any event, it is important to observe the meanings and to observe the prescribed method of a tarot spread, because these are mechanisms, if you don't mind that term, these are mechanisms of the divination. They are like a device that turns out the divinatory judgment. This is how you come up with a hopefully helpful and accurate divinatory judgment. If you do too much extemporaneous work, and if you don't go along with the methods that you have learned, then the chances are that your reading is not going to be very accurate, and that in turn will be deleterious to you and to the person whom you are reading for. So that you have to know the meanings, the basic meanings of the cards, and you have to have mastered at least one tarot spread from memory without having to look anything up. What happened with that particular person whom I was castigating now was that she would lay out some cards, and then she had a book and looked up their meanings. So I thought to myself, with a good old Fairfax Avenue exclamation, oy vey, because that's what that really was. And so that's really not desirable. So we have to know the meaning of the divinatory meaning of the cards, and we have to know what we are doing in terms of a spread. Now, people also like to invent sort of their own spreads. And that, I believe, was probably what the gypsies whom I knew in my childhood did, because they didn't seem to be, certainly, I don't think they read any books, and they didn't seem to be too impressed with other people's judgment of the cards, but they would lay out the cards and there they went. And they were, as I mentioned before, they were really quite insightful, and especially if you had a good relationship with that particular gypsy caravan with whom you were dealing, then they were also very very good and bringing certain insights to the people for whom they were reading. So that is also important to remember. Now then, what else? These things are quite important. But then, let us say, obviously, even if you like to read the tarot cards for others, and you like to become a reader, it will still occur to you that you may want to resort to the cards in some manner when there is no one else there but you. Because after all, you are a deserving individual also, and so there are some things that you can do, so to say, for yourself. So I worked out a little operation, which I'm sure can be modified and so forth, that seemed to have worked for me occasionally, very occasionally, because I've got so many other things to do and so forth, but occasionally I still do it, and it is done with the major arcana alone. So by then you have to know a bit of the meaning of the major arcana, of course, also. So what you do is you take the 22 cards of the major arcana and take a nice flat surface of a table or something of that sort, and you lay them out in a big circle or semicircle, all 22 of them. And then you do a little bit of short meditating, and with open eyes or closed eyes, doesn't make that much difference. You go down and pick a card. Turn it. Oh, I forgot to mention that when you lay out the major arcana cards, they are all face down. Face down. And now when you pick them up, then the face down changes to face up. So now you have the card in front of you. You put that on the table, and then you go over them again. You pick the second card, and you put that on the right side, and the third card which you put on the left side. Now the little system that I worked out was that the central card is the main, or conveys the main message. So that's the one that you really should pay close attention to. But the other two are modifying factors. So then you pick up the card on the right side and turn it upside, on the right side. And then what the meaning that I tend to attribute to that card is that here are the desirable, the helpful elements in your life, in your situation, that you should utilize at this particular time. In other words, that is the good side, and that has the helpful elements. So there again, you have to know the meaning of the card, otherwise you don't know whence cometh your help in biblical terms. So you turn it up and say, this is what I need to utilize. And then you go to that much maligned left side, the left-hand path, lefty this, lefty that. So you go to and turn up the left one. Now, as you probably guessed already, the left would be the opposite of the right. That's how it is in politics. That's how it is in all kinds of other things. So now you look at it, and now you need to interpret it that these are the factors in your situation that you should be cautious about, because this is the negative side. And it doesn't mean that you have to shun all of the elements that you have seen there, but that you need to be careful. And if you do that, then perhaps you'll get a more balanced reading. And then you combine now the main indicator in the center, the right hand helpful elements, and the left hand not helpful elements. And you read these off, and I say this is something that you can do for yourself. Probably when you are going to such dangerous places as, I don't know, we just had a summons, thank God, not for me, to the courthouse for what do we call it? When they for jury duty, that onerous and largely useless activity. So there you are. Now what are you going to do? So you consider the main card, the central card, what it tells you. Maybe it shows you something that would indicate, don't go to jury duty. Tell them if they want to lock you up, let them do so. It's good exercise. If they lock you up now, if later on something happens and you go to jail, you'll be familiar with your surroundings. Isn't that wonderful? No, I don't think you would want to do that. But let's say that's what you do. Now you figure out what to tell either yourself or somebody else whom you are reading for as to how they should proceed. And this is primarily, you probably already noticed that this is primarily in terms of elements, factors, conditions, circumstances, influences that will come your way and which you may avoid if they are on the left side, or take advantage if they are on the right side or in the center. So these things will have a definite meaning, and you have to think about that meaning, and then you have to translate the meaning that the card gives you to, let's say, the possibilities and the likelihood of your own situation. Because you have to translate what the card tells you into your own personal terms, or in the terms of the person whom you are reading for which reason every tarot reader, beginning with the gypsies, who have very sharp eyes, that's how they make a living. I won't go any further into the details of their livelihood, but let us say, they have the picture there. Now what you have to do is to translate the picture into the terms of your own inquiry or the inquiry of the person whom you are reading for. Because the tarots are not abstract meanings, but they are meanings in terms of the lives of people. And they have to be communicated in that fashion to the people or to yourself, because otherwise the whole situation doesn't make any sense. So that is really quite important. So what I'm trying to sort of hint at here again and again, that a tarot reader has to be alert and clever and intuitive, not just intuitive. The tarot is not a crystal ball that you just look at it and whammo, great revelations will arise. More likely just a lot of balderdash will arise in that fashion. But you have to be intuitive, you have to be clever, and you have to perceive the connections that exist between the various meanings that the cards bring. So these are important issues, and it is very good to keep in, let's say, to keep your psyche, as the psychologists call it, in good shape. Because when you are very nervous, you know what, you're going to give a good nervous reading. And it's because of your nervousness, it's not going to be very accurate. Because what can you do that turns out really good when you are super nervous? No, not very much. I can testify to that, because we Hungarians are a kind of little bit nervous and jittery folk, and if we don't manage to keep that within bounds, then we are going to utter a lot of nonsense, which is really quite contrary to what we have set out to do. So you have to control your nerves, and also, let's say, if you are, I mean, you know, I knew one person who, with some justification, had this saying. I think it was the late Gina Cerminara, a very wonderful lady, who wrote a very one of the normative books about Edgar Casey, for instance. She lived in the little back house behind Besant Lodge for a number of years, and we appreciated her very greatly. And she used to say that you have to, and she was a trained psychologist. She said you have to keep your own psyche in good shape and healthy when you are doing these things. That a neurotic psychic or a neurotic tarot reader will not be very good. You may come up with one or two good insights, but then after that, usually, whammo, they are out in outer space. You know, so I think that's a justifiable judgment. In any event, so we have to be in a pretty okay place, not after we had several large glasses of Johnny Red, Johnny Walker Red or anything like that, because anything that is likely to sort of befog our consciousness would not be to our advantage. And, you know, but the reason I brought up Dr. Gina Cerminara was because one of her saying was, because of references to Edgar Casey, remember, everybody is psychic. He says some of them don't know it, some of them don't want to know it, and then a very few of them want to know it. So I think that's a fairly good judgment. So we have to realize that we have the capacity to deal with what the ancients would have called the oracle. In this case, it's the oracle of the tarot. Why? Because it's a gift to as the ancients, as the Greeks would say, it's a gift of the gods to the humans. If the gods want to be nice to us and show us some things that we otherwise would not be able to partake of, then they will speak to us through an oracle, through a dream, through any number of modalities. Although, of course, there are warnings against that sort of thing too, as I think there is one by I don't know if anybody here speaks German, but that'll make it even easier, because you won't understand what I'm saying anyway. Namely, der Mensch versuche die Götter nicht und begehre nimmer zu schauen, was sie gnädig bedeckt mit Nacht und Grauen. This is a warning against getting too involved in your cult of divination. Man should not tempt the gods, and one should never desire to see what they have mercifully concealed by night and the mists of the night. Now, of course, if we took that literally, then none of us could do tarot readings, a number of other things. So it's not to be taken literally, and since it's in German anyway, you won't remember it, so we are quite okay. You know. But it is important to remember that we are dealing with no matter how we might laugh or have a good time in connection with the tarot reading, we have to keep in mind that there is always a meaning that is not on the surface but is related to the symbolism of the tarot. I don't know. Did I mention my wild adventure with the chariot yet?
No.
Because that's one of my big ones. Okay, so this was when my domicile was at the true address on the junction of Alexandria and Fountain. So anyway, while there, after we had usually a Kabbalistic meeting or something like that, then we had during a sort of a little social hour, those of us who remained there and didn't go away, we sat around in a sort of circle, and we had a deck which was just a major arcana, but of the large size, about this big. And a little more impressive when you see a lot of the picture. And so we shuffled, and then each of us pulled a card. So I pulled a card which was the card of the chariot. So I sat there gazing at this. I may also mention that it was a somewhat critical period of my life, and I was somewhat concerned about various things in my life. And I said, all right, now tell me. So here came the chariot. And it hit me like a thunderbolt. I almost fell off my chair. What it said to me was, the chariot is coming. And the chariot is going to be my life, my good fortune, my future. And so I have to be aware of this new thing coming and jump on it. If I don't get on the chariot, it will bypass me and go on someplace else. It's as simple as that. You know, a little bit of common sense is useful with all of these things. And so sure enough, I took that to heart, and within the next 1 week, and then the following next 2 or 3 weeks, so many things happened in my life that were totally unpredictable otherwise, and that were very much to my benefit. To go into them in detail would not mean much, but my life took a completely new turn at that point, and I said, all right, here is your doing tarot and so forth, so now believe your own oracle and act upon it. And I did, and everything worked out very nicely. So these things happen. Of course, there are others that are less fortunate and all that sort of thing, but the important thing is that you get an intuitive impression, especially when you are reading for yourself. What does this mean to me? What do the cards want me to do? What is their command for me at this time? And that's especially when you are reading for yourself, then those kinds of ideas are, I think, of great use. At the conclusion of our discussion last time, I branched off a little bit into the sort of speculative notions concerning the pagan times when the divinatory modalities were used so much and all that, because you know the Romans were big on divination. But if you study their history considerably, you find out that they also learned their divination from somebody else. And those were the Etruscans, who were, nowadays they would call them native people, although I always say there are no such, because everybody has come from somewhere, and conversely is going somewhere. We are a mobile bunch. You know? We are not like trees who are rooted down in the ground. In any event, the Etruscans were in the present-day Rome, and they were big magicians and big diviners. And when people wanted to know about their affairs that they did, that they were not cognizant of, and they went to the Etruscan witches who sat in these little caves in the mountains above Rome. Over by Tivoli, you can still see them. And they learned the divinations themselves. So we need to keep in mind that there were and there are many civilizations, many cultures that lay a great deal of emphasis on and have much trust in divination. You don't have to be a polytheist and believe in divinities being there, but whatever it is, there are modalities whereby matters that otherwise would remain unknown to you and therefore not able to be helpful to you can be recognized, and that these are the matters of divination. But I think it also means that we should have a reverent and sober attitude toward the divinatory modality. And I don't mean sober just by not drinking a lot of Johnny Walker Red that I mentioned before, but by keeping our intuitive faculties and our inner eyes open to what the divination may reveal to us. Because has been my experience, and I swear by it, that there is always some disclosure when you resort to a divinatory modality. Whether it is your horoscope, progressed horoscope, whether it is the tarot, whether there are any others, there is something there that is trying to reveal itself to you, and it is up to you to look and to listen. And if you do that, then you will in all likelihood be considerably rewarded. Now, what we have covered so far, and that's about as much as I should cover, and certainly not like last time, was that we in order to be a thorough diviner, you have to learn the meaning of the cards, all 78 of them. And if you say, oh, I don't have that kind of a memory and this and that or the other thing, yes, I have come across that. However, I have a feeling, and these are all sort of just intuitive, that the cards themselves want to be known to you. They want to become your friend. Again, this is an anthropomorphism, but it is true, because they are going to be your helpers. And you, hopefully, will be their helper to reveal what they want to reveal. So treat them with kindness and reverence, and like a new friend. And I assure you that if you do that sincerely, you will get a good friend. And for many, many years, the tarot deck has been my friend. Not so much lately because of a lot of other things that have to be done, but it is essentially a friendly modality. Now, that they can also trick you a little bit is also true. And why is that? Because if you have a really good friend, and I have been blessed with a few in my long life, you know, your friends are going to play tricks on you too. If they're worth anything, they're going to pull your leg, they're going to pull your nose, and various things, and snicker about you behind your back. And that's part of friendship. You know, if you just have saints for friends, then they'll just be there. Oh, Stephan, oh, how happy I am with you. But then, if they'll twist a little knife in your back, and you go, ow! So that's part of the situation, and divinities can. they can make demands on your consciousness, that you understand what they are trying to tell you, that you will understand the advice that they give you, and various things of that sort. And these are all very important. So remember Eden Gray, as I say, she published 3 books which are all very similar to each other. But I'm sure that they were all published sort of in the late 60s, in the early 70s, and they are all very informative, especially in terms of describing the meaning of the cards. So from some source like that, like from a good dictionary, you can learn another language, so you can learn about the meaning of the individual tarot cards by those particular books. And if I ever get my library in order, which of course is probably more than I can hope for, then I'll bring her books down and show them to you. So let's say the tarot should not be treated superstitiously, like an oracle of tremendous import, but at the same time it should not be treated as a game either, because it's not, you can play games with cards. And there, as I mentioned to you, I think last time, there is a very fine tarot deck that developed out of the tarot that is very popular in the German-speaking countries, in Switzerland, in Austria, in Bavaria, and around there, which is called the Tarot, T-A-R-O-C-K. And it doesn't have all the cards of the tarot deck, but it has a complete set of major arcana. So that in itself is quite, you can play a good game with it. Many times I was up in the city of Innsbruck till midnight or afterwards drinking tea, that's all we could do, and playing a game with 2 or 3 others on that card. So the thing is, you have to have an attitude that it's in between a superstitious awe and an all too light-hearted approach. You have to be somewhere in that borderland where real meaning dwells. And you know there is such a borderland, because it would seem that whoever we attribute this to Almighty God or to the saints or the masters or whoever, but there are forces in this world that seemingly are desirous of informing us, of helping us, of inspiring us. And in a world that is so perverse and that has so much balderdash in it all the time, and flapdoodle and nonsense, that's a great blessing. You know, we are surrounded by meaning and by things that can bring us more meaning. And what could be more precious in life than to enhance our meaning? Because that is, well, meaning will give you meaning. Meaning will truly enrich your life. And the absence of it will impoverish you. So if you can use the tarot in that sense of obtaining more meaning, specific and general, then you are doing very well. And as far as combining the tarot with other things, I know people, of course, there is an obvious connection with Kabbalah, so Kabbalistic studies can be very helpful. And there I would recommend, because I think the tarot cards are mentioned there too, because she was quite fond of them, is Dion Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah. One of the truly wonderful books that has been written over the last couple of 100 years. It is a masterpiece. And there you will find the relationship, possibly, of the Kabbalistic meanings and the tarot itself. So I would say that the tarot can be a a very helpful instrument of your life. It can give you more meaning, it can give you insight, it can give you advice, and it can give you help. And it practically never misleads you. But while doing a tarot reading, you can mislead yourself. And I have done it, and in some cases I have regretted it for the rest of my life. So one has to be careful, because it is a serious thing. It is a serious modality. There's something there that is trying to get through to you, and you better be there to receive it and to utilize it.